Just days after the Supreme Court struck down the president's tariff policy, President Trump announced he will push ahead with a new increase in tariffs. Today, in a Truth Social post, the president wrote he does not have to go back to Congress to get approval of tariffs. The president also wrote he already has approval without listing specifics. CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us. So, Olivia, the Trump administration's trade rep Jamieson Greer spoke with our colleague Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation about whether the president needs to go to Congress with these new tariffs. Let's listen.
In some ways, Congress has already pre-approved these types of authorities. I'm happy to have conversations with Congress about how to legislate the president's trade program. And I've had, conversations like that already, and there is some interest. And so we're happy to talk to them about it, but we're not going to stop our program. We'll just use the congressional authorities they've extended already for now.
What does he mean by that?
So what he's referring to there is called Section 122 tariffs. That is what the president has implemented on Friday. And then we know on Saturday he upped it from 10% to 15%. And they're saying they don't need congressional authority because this authority was given in the 1974 Trade Act. Now, that's what this White House is using to replace the tariffs that they had repealed last week by the Supreme Court. But the tricky thing about these tariffs is they only last for about 150 days. So bookmark that from Saturday. That would be late July this summer is when these tariffs would go into place, would be repealed, that the White House has put in place. Now, they're saying that that would give them enough time to do some of these investigations that they would like to do under other tariff authorities like Section 232 or 301, where they could say under national security purposes that they would need to then implement certain types of tariffs. But the problem is for this White House, this isn't the blanket tariff or the IEEPA authorities that the president had, where he could just say on whatever country and for whatever reason that he was going to be implementing these tariffs. Now it's a much stricter regimen that they have to follow and new legal authority that they have to follow in order to implement these tariffs. So it's much more restrictive. It doesn't last as long. And this requires more effort on this administration to do investigations, not only into countries, but to goods themselves and industries themselves, seeing how they can shape those industries to the U.S. benefit through new tariff arguments. So all of that to say this is still a major setback for this White House. There's going to be a lot more legwork that they're going to have to do to implement some of these tariffs. But for right now, this 15% tariff under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act is what they are using, and that's what is in place right now for countries across the globe.
All right, Olivia Rinaldi, thank you so much. You can stay with CBS News for live coverage of President Trump's State of the Union address and the Democratic response tomorrow. Our coverage begins at 5 o'clock Eastern with a special edition of The Takeout with Major Garrett. CBS News evening anchor Tony DeCopel will lead our coverage from Washington, D.C. starting at 8 p.m. Eastern with the speech itself scheduled for 9. And afterward, you can watch the Free Press Post State of the Union show on CBS News 24/7.